Ladies and gentlemen, the San Antonio Spurs are up next. The Big Vic in the middle, Wembalicious. Is he going to be the number one player in fantasy basketball this year? What about Fox, Vassell, Barnes? Let's talk about those players and more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Ball Logic. I'm the horse, and joining me this afternoon is the man who is responsible for all of our great articles within our Patreon that are, of course, free for you at home. It's Flanders. How you doing, mate?
Mate, I'm good. And are we talking about Wembalicious, did I hear in that intro?
I think I did say that. At least if I say that, I can't get in trouble for mispronouncing his surname wrong. So
Wembalicious, that's what we're going to start calling him from now on. I am all aboard that train, mate.
I'm Wembalicious. Bit of Black Eyed Peas. But anyway, let's move on, because if you wanted to hear me sing, you definitely wouldn't be here. We're here to talk San Antonio Spurs 2025-2026 season. If you haven't yet, like, subscribe, bell. We call it being the triple banger. But also, if you listen to us on audio, the 5-star review helps us get out into the ears of those that love a bit of banter along with their NBA knowledge. So Flanders, last year, the San Antonio Spurs, 34-48. Doesn't read too pretty on paper, but given the lack of games out of Big Vic in the middle, or Wembalicious, as he's now known as, I suppose, they got a decent draft pick. They got Dylan Harper. They're back. No more DVT for Wemby. Happy days, right?
Yeah, something like that. I think he showed his importance last year. When he was done, they were done. I think we all seen that pretty obviously. So they're going to be, again, you never like the idea of leaning on somebody's health, but that's what you're doing with Wemby. And I think having a player as good as him, and they've got a lot of young guys coming through here. This is going to be pretty glorious to have a look into, because it's very top heavy, and then there's a whole lot of depth here. And I think the 12-team guys are not going to be looking too much into the depth here, but I think the guys that like a bit of 14, 16, or 18 man, maybe even a 20 man, they are going to be keen to have a look at this team deep.
Yeah, absolutely. So injuries did hurt them last year, but they have brought in Cornette, Olynyk to help at the center spot. Wembanyama, he's the man in the middle. We're going to talk about him in a minute, but they are deep. They are exciting. They've got a lot of young players who are going to be exciting to watch as their careers progress. So before we go any further, we're going to get into our team's top cut. And it's Big Wemby in the middle. So the man who only played 46 games last year at 33 minutes per game, 47% from the field, 83 from the line, pretty good for a big. Over three-pointers made each game, 24 points, 11 rebounds, just short of 4 assists, 4.9 stocks. That's almost 5 steals and blocks per game. But the turnovers are the killer, Flanders. So when you're talking Jokic, you're talking SGA, and you're talking Wemby, Wemby's probably the first player that will go where you're almost going, yeah, I'm starting to look to tank a category, and that being turnovers.
Yeah, and I think turnovers isn't the worst one to try punt. If you're picking up a center that turns it over, you can pick up a guard, you can pick up forwards that turn it over a lot. So it's pretty easy to find that in there, and it's not the worst punt to have gone with. Keep an eye out on field goal percentage. Just being a center, his isn't the greatest one. Pretty easily rebuildable with somebody in a second round of a 12-man league with someone like Evan Mobley to pick up for the 4. So there's some good options there if you can rebuild it back pretty easily. But it is just one of those things, if you do have to factor it into that, particularly the second round pick, or even maybe a deeper pick for your 4-man.
Yeah, for sure. Big Vic, there's no disputing it. If he's there on your board, I'd be grabbing him. Like Jokic, for me, undisputed number 1. But then you've got SGA and Wemby, who both provide real value depending on how you want to structure your team. Just, he was number 2 last year, 46 games played. If he's there, you grab him. De'Aaron Fox is another one, though, that I see. He was ranked 31 last year, but another preseason or off-season with Wemby, bit more chemistry, surround them with shooters. The floor opens up a little bit, or the lanes open up for De'Aaron Fox. 82% from the line, so he was much better last year than what he'd been in previous years, only 46 from the field. But 23.5 points, 6.5 assists, 1.5 steals. Again, turnovers aren't great, 2.8 turnovers, but I can see a real positive season here for Fox, and even one where he potentially may end up being inside the top 2 rounds.
Yeah, I could see that possibility there. You could be on for a San Antonio stack here too. Like they're very similar together, and if you could go something like just talking out of the tongue here, a Wemby into a Mobley into a Fox, that's not the worst stack you could have there. You're going to pick up enough points. You got plenty of defense going on there. You've restored your field goal percentage for all intensive purposes there, and you just punted turnovers. Nice and easy. That's not a bad first 3 rounds.
Spot on. That pick and roll combination with Fox and Wemby, that's going to be nasty.
Oh, absolutely elite. The pick and roll, but the pick and pop is going to go incredibly underrated. He shot 3.1 threes last year, and there is no reason that it couldn't stay the same. Or there's a room for it to go up too with that pick and pop.
Teams are going to crush the paint to keep Wemby out. You're right. So there's going to be plenty of room on the perimeter. Let's get into the best of the rest. You're simply the best. Now, let's talk about the best of the rest. We've got Vassell, Harper, Castle, Cornette, Barnes, Johnson, Sohan, Olynyk, Champagny. They've all played roles in the past or could play a role this year. I don't see any one of them being inside the top 80 bar Vassell if he gets hot. What are your thoughts, mate? It sort of falls away after Wemby and Fox, doesn't it?
It's a tough decision on who is the best of the rest because there isn't really anybody that's left that's any good of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
With CP3 leaving, he was a 90th overall last year. That was it sort of smoothed out the step between the top and the rest of them. But yeah, Vassell, I could see they'd have to probably see a big leap from Stephon Castle to see him anywhere near relevant. But I think Vassell's probably the biggest step up that you'd see if anybody's going to be a step up.
Yeah, looks good. I think he's in for another breakout year, Vassell. Is he going to be the most improved player? Probably not. But I think in a system, new coach coming in, Mitch Johnson coming in, not the Australian fast bowler, but the American NBA coach, Mitch Johnson. I think Popper's had his favourites in the past, and Barnes was one of them. And we'll get into who we think the starting 5 and that will be down the track. But I see more value in Vassell being on the floor than what I do in Barnes being on the floor.
Yeah, I'd probably be the same as well. I see there's a lot of upside value here. He doesn't punish issue on turnovers. He probably needs to bring the field goal percentage up to become a bit more relevant for my liking. Other than that, he sort of does everything else pretty good. He's good if you needed to pick up late round threes and steals, 2.5 threes last year and 1.3 steals, another half a block as well. It's not bad if you can pick him up at the shooting guard, so I don't mind that.
Yeah, for sure. I like it, mate. I like it a lot. Let's talk. Is there anyone else you want to talk about? Harper, maybe being the number 2 draft pick. People are pretty high on him, but I think be patient with him. Dynasty-wise, I think he's a good pick, but in your leagues this year, I'd probably fade, especially with the injury news coming out of San Antonio that he's touch and go for the start of the season. When you're a rookie, you need reps. You need to build up that chemistry with everyone. You can't just come in and dominate like you did in college. So I'd probably be just holding off a bit there.
Yeah, I think if you're picking your last round or maybe even your second last round of a draft, yeah, he's a good option to take a flyer if you're probably going to throw him to waivers later on anyway. But other than that, yeah, don't think there's going to be everything there for him. He's someone that's worth probably grabbing with the last pick, but I wouldn't be reaching much higher than that.
No, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't have thought so. And then you got Castle. I don't mind him, but don't love him. I think he got played a lot and the ball was force-fed to him last year. He will be a good player in time, but the percentages really hurt. 43% from the field, 73 from the line. The only categories that he was really good in were points and assists last year, 16 points, 4.5 assists. But again, that's because he played nearly 30 minutes a game for the Spurs. Keldon Johnson as well, coming off the bench. He played 70 games. That's awesome, but 12 points a game, 4.5 assists. This is one of those players that he played for Team America a few years back, and it's almost like people have held on to the name. He played for America. He must be good. But fantasy-wise, this is the difference between NBA basketball and fantasy basketball. He doesn't do anything for your fantasy team, does he?
Yeah, and you can't buy into names. We talk about a lot of other players. He can't buy into names, and when they're going to be so focused around their top two guys here in Wemby and Fox, you are just looking at two big guys here and a lot of sort of other options. And the other options are great on other teams, but they are just other options out here. The new coach thing is going to be something that come your first few weeks to keep an eye on to see where the favoritism is there. And if there's some games I'll be watching for fantasy relevance to see who's going to be picking up off waivers, it would be a Spurs one.
For sure. Mate, Spurs record this year, 34 wins last year. Wemby went down, 46 games I think he played last year. So he's missing almost 40 games, 36, if my maths is correct.
Hang on.
Where do you see their record being this year?
I am going to go with 42 and 40 here. I'm not as high on them as others are around here, but I think 42, 40, probably scrape into the play-in if they're lucky there, probably an 11th or 12th, and that's where I see them being, mate. Where do you think?
I'm a bit higher on San Antonio than what other people are. I think a full season of Wemby, and mind you, these predictions are made if the San Antonio Spurs stay healthy, but a full off-season with Fox, that chemistry develops. You surround them with shooters, a new system as well. So especially early on, teams aren't going to know much about the strengths and weaknesses of the San Antonio system that they're going to be running. I think I want to say 50 wins, but I'm not going to go that high. I'll say 48 wins. I think they could be really good. I think when you've got Houston and Dallas and San Antonio in the same conference, in the same state, they're probably two of the more improved teams as well. Like you look at Dallas and they've got Flagg, they've got Davis, they'll get Irving back from injury. Klay Thompson can still splash a three. They've got Lively, they've got Gafford, they've got Washington, they've got Russell, they've got plenty there. And then at Houston, they've got what they've got, and then they've added KD. So it's going to be hot there in the West. But yeah, 48 wins, I can see it being achievable.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a fan in Texas of basketball. You got a lot of upcoming here, you got a lot of youth, and you got a lot of excitement here as well. So I'm a big fan of Texas basketball at the moment.
Get on the horns. Let's go. Your starting five.
Fox and Wemby, I think, are the pretty well locked in items here. Castle and Vassell, and they'll start the year with Barnes at the power forward. I reckon come the end of the year, it becomes Jeremy Sohan. I reckon they're going to change some things up throughout the year, but start with the known quantity in Barnes. What about you, mate? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Wemby, Fox, Vassell, Barnes, Castle.
Yep.
I think that's the way they will go. But I think towards the back end of the year, I think Barnes goes into so he'll be 36 this year. So he's not getting any younger. Keldon Johnson is just a glorified role player. I think he stays in that role off the bench. Sohan was taken with I believe he was inside the top 10 when we're talking picks. I don't think that his outside game has developed the way that San Antonio would have liked, and it sort of restricts his game a little bit. He can play. He's good at defense, as in not stats-wise, but he's a good defender in the NBA system. But, yeah, he's probably, I don't know. They tried him in a point guard type role last year. He looked okay without being great. But when you got Wemby and Fox, you need to space the floor to let these two go to work. So I think that really restricts what Sohan can do in this system.
Yeah, he picked 9. He was in 22, so you're bang on there, mate, just inside the 10. I think they're going to try and make something of him. But again, I'd probably keep the hopes a bit mellowed on that there. I think he's going to be a later in the year option, but I think Barnes is the known quantity. They'll start that and then see what happens.
For sure. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do us for the San Antonio Spurs. If you like what you hear and you want much, much more, we got heaps going on here at Ball Logic. Team previews, ranking systems, all that sort of jazz, and more coming up here on your one and only stop for all things NBA fantasy and banter involved. It is Ball Logic. We'll catch you tomorrow where we've got a live mock draft going on. We'll see you then.